Okay, so basically what we heard a little bit about, Michael found that Washington Post article this morning. I had seen it before I got out of bed. I'm going to work on not reading the news before I get out of bed, but and there's some weird news in the world. We all know this. There's some weird news in the world, but we have spent the last almost 24 hours together talking about all the things we can still do despite what's happening in the crazy, crazy world. Because we are all, right here in this room, committed to electrifying our fleets. We are committed to figuring out how to reduce our carbon emissions. We're figuring out how to make this world a better, safer, more wonderful place for our children, our grandchildren. We have work to do, and we cannot, while we have to pay attention to the noise and we have to be ready for what comes our way, we also have to stay as energized and positive and focused on solutions. And doing it with the people who are in this room is the absolute best thing you're ever going to come across. So again, today what we want to focus on in this next hour is who are the partners? Who are the people who could help us? We're going to talk about who has helped us. We're going to talk about who has not been super helpful to help each other avoid those pitfalls that Nick talked about earlier. I think the best thing we ever do for each other is don't try that, it was terrible. Or if you do try it this way. Don't say that, avoid it this thing. That's a lot of what we want to get out of with y'all today. And we're going to focus on the things we know, chargers, vehicles. Maybe we go to lawn and other kind of equipments, and then the big stuff, garbage trucks or school buses. So those are the kind of 4 big topic areas that we want to dig through. Your table captain is going to lead you through some questions with each one of those. But we also are smart enough to know we got to go where y'all want to go with these conversations. We've also listed some of the super questions, I think the bigger overall questions. So they've got some with you, but y'all are the smart ones. So if you've got a better question or something we need to talk about, do not hesitate. Take your table captain down that road. That road, get it? See, I did that. But there are 3 areas that I know we want to be focusing. When you're looking for a partner, there are partners who can offer you 3 different major things. What's the number one thing we all know and need? Yeah. That is only one thing that's out there. The second thing that's out there is smart people. People with knowledge. People who can help you avoid those pitfalls. People with the tools like the N-rail placement tool. How do you figure out how to do all this stuff so you don't have to get a calculator out and a line graph and figure out math? Yuck. So we can find smart people who already do that for you or tools who are already doing that for you. And then the second thing, too, is influence and power. I love, Cassie, you're going to do our next electrification transportation work group on figuring out how to get into meetings. So we need to figure out how, yeah, I haven't told you that. I did tell Melody, though, so you're in. But we want to figure out, like, where is the power and the influence that we need to be putting some pressure on? You got 19 city councilors. Goodness. How do you figure that out? Somebody else in the room? I can't because I made you move. You have to get 3 of your people, and they don't like each other. So that is happening in legislatures everywhere and in city councils and county commissioners everywhere. So what do you need? And if you're not the right messenger, who is? So how do we kind of figure out how to work around some of the yucky noise that we're hearing out in the world? So with that, I'm going to turn it over to your table captains. Y'all are going to spend about the next 35-ish minutes. And then they're each going to have a reporter who's going to come out and do a report out so we can all hear what's happening and do a lot of dittos, I hope. And then Stan's also going to add some peppering in from what he's hearing about partnerships at the industry level. So excited to have all of that. So without any further ado, y'all, go. Okay, everybody, I'm bringing you back together. We have hit the time, and then I started talking, so we went over the time. And I see Stan talking, and Stan has the job of starting us off. So everybody, do I need to do that clap thing? Please don't make me. Everybody good? Okay, good conversations. Can I get a yes or no, or how's everybody? Yay. Okay, so we're going to have everybody do a report out, and y'all have probably been assigned. But I do want to start with Stan. I didn't want him to go first early because I wanted y'all, I didn't want to Well, I didn't want to taint the conversation with what industry is thinking, but I absolutely want to hear what industry is thinking, and I think y'all will too. So Stan, can I give you the stage? Yeah. Is there a mic up there? Yes.
Yeah, so, before the conference, I reached out to some industry folks just to ask them, sort of, what do you value in a partner? When you're looking to partner with public entities, what are you looking to get out of that relationship? And, some of the themes that emerged from the responses, and these were charging infrastructure companies with different sort of models and whatnot of how they're doing stuff, was, first and foremost, they're looking for public partners who understand that they're running a business model that requires them to make money, right? And so working with them to figure out how to fit their business needs in with your, kind of public service needs. That was one. Another one was looking for public entities that can help speed execution. So the biggest challenge for the private sector on the infrastructure side when working with local governments is you all move like molasses, right? Which we understand why, right? But from their perspective, it's challenging. And so whenever there can be processes that help to speed that up, that's a serious benefit to private sector partners. And then they were also kind of in that same vein is looking for public partners that are willing to work with them through permitting and zoning challenges. The private sector recognizes that the permitting and zoning reality is not ideal, right? They understand that there's issues with right-of-way, there's all kinds of issues in the permitting side of things, zoning, but they're looking for partners who will help them work through that, help them navigate the internal of your local government, right? And so, because like thinking about it from that private sector partner, they come in to work with you, they have no idea, your weirdness, right? They're gonna find it out as they move through the process. And so I'm sharing these things, both, we got a business model, we gotta make money, we're looking for expedited processes so that we can turn our sales cycle into a faster process of costs to revenue. And how can we work with you around permitting and zoning? Because y'all are competing for the good partners. There's only so many good partners out there to help you with your infrastructure needs or help you with your vehicle needs. And they're shopping you just like you're shopping them. And I think if you approach it that way and think about how you're going to sell the opportunity to your private sector partner that you need to help solve some of your problems in a way that's going to help them be a stronger business, you're going to be more attractive to them. They're likely to invest more time and energy in you and kind of prioritize you as a customer. So I just wanted to share that, what folks shared with me, so you guys just have that as food for thought. Does any of that surprise you? Have you, in the sort of public-private partnerships that you've been doing, have you had experiences where the private sector partner has struggled because of issues like zoning and permitting and the pace of the project?
And RFPs and contracts and...
Yeah, I mean, the RFPs and contract stuff, I mean, the private sector knows that's coming, right? If municipalities are a channel partner for a private sector company, they ought to know that they're going to have to deal with RFPs and deal with that kind of stuff. So if that surprises them, you might want to do some due diligence. The other thing that I heard was that, in this space, there are companies that are new startups, and there are companies that are more mature in the space, and then there are, your utilities and other sort of institutional corporations, right? And all of them come with sort of risk and reward in the partnership. And one thing that I've heard from the private sector is that it might be good for municipalities to think about how they're diversifying their partnerships, and just be aware that at this sort of still nascent time in the industry, if you put too many eggs in one basket, right, that basket may go away, and then you're left holding all the eggs. And so thinking also in your partnerships about how you're doing that diversification, because some of the startups may be able to deliver the really innovative stuff that you need. They may be willing to work with you in making sure there's charging stations in lower income parts of your town, as well as places where there may be a lot of EVs today, because they're hungry for the business. And they may be a great partner in that way. But just being aware of the risk that you're taking on as a local government. At the same time, the more mature companies, might not be as accommodating, right, to the things that you need, because they're more financially secure and they're looking for the best deal for themselves. So that was another piece of feedback I got from some of the industry folks, was just to think about how you're diversifying, those partnerships over time.
Who wants to go first? Who wants to go first report out? Okay, everybody. Oh, this to you, though. Is Nick did you get the job? All right. Oh, you're going to hold the ball.
Somehow I got to be the report out person. I'm not sure how that worked. No, so, we ended up focusing in on lawn equipment. What? Hi, everybody. This is how, never mind. No. Okay, so, I think a few things we talked about, because lawn equipment definitely has some ordinances that might help. One primary one being noise ordinance, of course. Like, there are a lot of folks who get pretty miffed when you're trying to mow the lawn at 8 o'clock, or some company comes in and tries to do the mow and blow at 7 a.m. in the morning or whatever. So I think that's definitely a potential benefit. At the same time, I think, Gordon from DeKalb was like, he's thinking about it not only for private and residential use and how to kind of encourage that adoption, but also just within the city operations. And every city has a different way of doing it, right? Some of them contract out all services. Some of them self-perform internal, like have their own mower fleets and all of that stuff. And I think, so that really shifts how each community approaches some of that. But he was even struggling with finding the viable commercial equipment providers that could perhaps come in and provide some of the demo time, let the landscape folks at the city get into it, or even just doing like a ride and drive day for lawn equipment, right? So I think we talked about different partnerships there and potential partnerships, and we already generated a few good ideas and recommendations for him there. I think a lot of the stigma and just unknown, again, it's not all that uncommon from the EV market as well, right? It's like, well, how long do those batteries last? How often do you have to charge them? What happens when you got to recycle them? How much do the replacement batteries cost? What's the actual total cost of ownership on those things? And how does that fit into our existing cost-benefit analysis? So those are some of the pieces that I think we talked about. Let's see I think there was just a lot of discussion about, and we mentioned this earlier, pilot programs. Like, call it a pilot, run something a little more geographically locked in or condensed for a while, and thinking about in that process, what are some of the other partners we might want to bring into the conversation, and that then got into community-based organizations, health advocacy organizations, so thinking about the health impacts, human health impacts of better air quality and reduced fumes from and emissions from lawn equipment. So I think we had a lot of ideas for that. I don't know that we got a lot further, but I'll look to the group, see if there's anything else I missed or you might want to add. And you have to hug the...
Oh, I have to hug it? Okay. Okay. So we also kind of talked about the procurement challenges with respect to running like a pilot program, or if a manufacturer came in and they said, oh, well, we want you to demo our product. And then it came into the challenges of, okay, well, how much is it going to cost us if we were going to fully go all in on your product and do this? Like, do we want to waste our time doing a demo if it's ultimately going to exceed our thresholds and we're going to have to go to bid anyway? So those are some considerations that we had talked about. I know every municipality probably has, different thresholds or when we have to do quotes or sole source or, whatever the case may be. But these are things that we have to kind of think about as we transition to certain types of equipment, especially, electric equipment. So that was one thing that came up in our conversations as well. Anybody else want to add anything? I think we're done then.
So we also spoke about lawn equipment, just to kind of build off of because they kind of hit the nail on the head. We spoke about the batteries, backup batteries, lifespan of the equipment, time to charge versus time to complete the actual job. The partnership came up of partnering with agricultural companies to see where they use electric specifically versus where they would use regular gas. UF IFAS potential partnerships as well came up. An interesting one came up where it's heat-related issues, such as uniform issues causing heat exhaustion, and ensure that staff has sufficient water breaks. What other policies are in place that can or help to conduct activities earlier in the day when it's electric equipment versus the gas equipment. We did have time to speak on charging infrastructure. A lot of the issue was FPL chargers, the charge point ones. Lack of access to data or the dashboard to be able to track usage, turn them off on, track fees and so on. Regional transit, paying for a subscription that came from North Carolina. Partnerships should be established, more so mandated once a relationship is built. City of Fort Lauderdale, they spoke on dumb chargers where they collected data. No data collected, but it was just for utilization. Trade shows are also a good avenue to hear about different topics, meeting people, building relationships, and learning about different technologies. Use it more so as a research and fact-finding initiative. Streamlining EV permits, and we also mentioned about beam solar arrays for EV chargers, and the Charging Smart program, which is similar to Soul Smart. I don't know if anybody else wanted to add. No? Great job. Thanks.
When you say quieter equipment to be able to, did you mean use electric because it's quieter so you can go?
Yeah, the conversation came up with like HOAs and stuff like that.
That's brilliant, and that's a great reason. So your partner there also can be workers and unions and your own team, your own labor team. Sorry.
I'm gonna have you back up so I'm not. All right, so we focused mainly on EV chargers and partnerships. So we had a couple of different states at the table. So one, I think it was somebody local here, talked about having this kind of three-way partnership with, it was a federal funding opportunity, and they had the utility company that was able to, go in and do all the infrastructure part, and then the local government was able to provide the land, and then they had a third party come in and do the installation of the actual chargers and the operations and maintenance. And then we also talked about some issues with terms and conditions and indemnity, how that becomes a barrier. You've got a third party that's willing to come in, but our legal departments don't like their terms and conditions. Then we also talked about partnering with neighboring municipalities in our county. So there was a couple people at the table that are working on doing that. And then to kind of go back to the third party system, we talked about that for a while. Like how do we, some people are doing that and some people aren't, and the ones that aren't, we don't really know how to. Like how do we get these third parties to come in and be willing to upfront all the capital and operate and maintenance, and then all we need to do is break even on the electric bill. And so we talked about that for a while. And then one of us was partnering with a utility for electric buses as well. But that didn't maybe work out very well. And I think that's all we really talked about.
Thank you. So we focused on vehicles and different areas to create connections. Like North Carolina had a sustainable fleet conference. So it's a great opportunity to make connections with auto manufacturers. There's also clean city coalitions in Tennessee and in Florida, and Southeast Florida. So it's also another great opportunity to see what funding is available. So we discuss what kind of cars we have, what kind of EV cars. For instance, I forgot what's the name. Gainesville has 11 Nissan Leafs, used mostly for light duty by their planning department. So that's 1% of their light duty fleet of 1,000. So we discuss, EVs, you should really consider the usage of the car before you purchase and assign the car. You also have 19 hybrid buses, Gillig buses. We discussed different collaboration with different universities in Gainesville, the importance of doing cost-benefit analysis before purchasing the cars. We also discussed tracking mileage. Now that you have an EV, what kind of system are you going to use for tracking? So Tennessee uses telematics system to track, and you said Ford provide one free for 3 years. And then we also discussed fees, because a lot of cities have, no fees for charging. So we discussed the possibility of having maybe transitional fees for some cities that decide to charge. Maybe you can start by charging for idle time instead of having cars being parked overnight. And then who's going to track these fees? So assigning this to a staff member, is this a position that you need to create, or is this something you can give to somebody that's already in the office? We discussed partnerships. It was unfortunately mostly negative. Sorry, I don't have any more notes on that. Okay, we discussed training, education, for charging. Should you create videos to give whoever's driving, tips on how to prolong the range of the car? We discussed climate bingo and EV bingo, how to make it fun and attractive for the users, maybe creating a car video. And I think that's all we have, if anybody wants to add anything. All righty.
Really hold it. Attention. So we also focused on the charger side of things. And one partnership that we thought could be really fruitful in a lot of different ways is from the city with the various metropolitan planning organizations, whether that's just from a data perspective or co-applying to grants, and even with things like workforce development, as well as the comprehensive planning, trying to really tie EVs and charging into those plans. From a few challenges we talked about was finding consistency across the charger type and being able to analyze the data to go out and do more things with that. And we kind of talked about communicating with other groups within the city to make sure that there's some consistency in procurement, or at least some conversation that whatever you're using is going to be able to communicate with each other, or that there's some way to track. On the policy side, when looking at some of those readiness ordinances, really engaging the developers on the front end of things and kind of co-creating that, rather than dealing with backlash or trying to go backwards at the end. And then finally, we just talked about finding champions for these projects and kind of the advantages that if you're able to find one who's not necessarily coming from the traditional environmental side or sustainability department, if you can find somebody from fleet or fire who's on board, that can really galvanize a lot of folks. And also, even if they're not within your city, but you're able to find a regional partner who's not necessarily from the sustainability side of things, that can go a long way. I think those were the highlights. Awesome.
Big round of applause for each of you. Thank you all so much. I want to put a little plug in here. I put all of our contact information. Nick and we're coming up with new titles. I don't know what they are yet, so y'all will hear about that. So that's what we do. But we do, SSDN hosts work groups, and we host them 10 months out of the year, usually 2 semesters, but one we've been carrying for several years now is transportation electrification. If y'all are not on that, send me an email and tell me you want to be. If you are a member organization of SSTN, which means your city, your town, your community, you are a member. Everyone who you think ought to come to those meetings can be a participant in SSTN and come to those meetings. So feel free to add them to the listserv. Feel free to send me an email and tell me when they are. Feel free to send me an email and tell me that you want a list of all the work groups that we host. And then my last little note, if you didn't get Meg's email this week or Michael Dexter's email, send me a note about that too. We'll get it forwarded to you. Michael is asking if your grants, if your federal grants are not going well, or frankly, even if they are, please tell us so we can be aware. So that's my work speech, my housekeeping. The thing I want to close with today is this. When I started doing resilience work at the City of Mobile, the number one thing that I realized was that my idea didn't have to be the best idea. I needed to find the best idea, and that's whoever could come up with the best idea. We have always, all of us in local government, and hopefully more of us in the world, are not looking for credit or be the winner. What we're looking for is the thing we are doing, the work we are doing to be the winner. So finding that best idea, finding that best partner, even if it's a partner that might be a little bit icky sometimes, that is when we're going to actually find and make real change. So thank you all for thinking this through today. Thank you for thinking about partnerships and for all the work you do all day long anyway. Okay, that's it. Thank you. Dory, what's next? Oh, there's something next, right? Oh, that's that. Is that it? What? We're done?
Yeah, so we left like an extra half an hour for you guys to have like free time to talk and to network and to do what you need to do. Or if you're like, I want to get home because I'm going to Key West and I have a long trip ahead, then do that. But I just wanted to thank you all so much for being like super active, engaged participants the past 2 days. It's been really, really wonderful and helpful. Here we go. I think to even just to get together and like feel better about like where we are in the world with everything that's going on, to know that we've got each other's backs and we've got lots of folks that we can call on and get support from and ask questions of and get answers from. So